Thank you, John. You read the right verses. Will you join me in prayer? Oh Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable and joyous and fulfilling in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Well, if you were here with us last week, you know that we are launching a 4-week series of letters to the church in uncertain times. It seemed like a timely thing to do in the midst of all the stuff happening within the larger global church and therefore happening within our local church. So we read last week Paul's first letter, or the introduction to the letter to the church at Corinth. We continued with John's reading this morning, verses 10 through 18, but those first verses were an opportunity for Paul to congratulate the church on who they were, who he knew they could be, the gifts and the graces that they had, and all the good things about them that they had been empowered to do. And he did that before the shoe was about to drop, remember? He was getting ready to let them have it because there had been not a little bit of arguing among them. You remember they were fighting among themselves about who had the greatest gifts of the Spirit, who could speak in tongues, and who could do healing, and who could not, and that gave them the most important place in the church. So they were posturing about who was the greatest of all. And then remember, they were also dealing with some promiscuity in the church. This had been a secular group of folk that had come together, and old habits die hard. So he had some things to talk with them about. He wanted to have a come-to-Jesus conversation with them. It was a criticism not to be critical, but to offer them to step into a place of unity so that the mission of the church, their common mission, would not be compromised. Do you know the name Stephen R. Covey? Anybody? Stephen R. Covey? He was an MBA, an American educator, author, businessman, keynote speaker. He was also an avid churchman. Do you know what denomination, what faith he was? He was Mormon. He had an MBA and he had a doctorate in religious education as well. He was really well known for his business and family leadership, and specifically for one of the books that he wrote, his most popular, that sold over 20 million copies. Do you know what it was? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Do any of you own this? And you've memorized it, you practice it every day. Gosh, I keep it out, not that I get to it very often, but great book. He also wrote First Things First, The Principles of Leadership, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, the 8th Principle, and so on, and so on. In 1996, he was named one of Time Magazine's 25 most influential people. He taught at John M. Huntsman School of Business, Utah State University. One of my favorite organizational gurus, he had a very untimely death. I didn't know about this until yesterday. Was riding his bike at high rate of speed at 79, and his helmet came off and hit the pavement. And he lasted for 2 months and then lost his bike. But if you know any more about him, you know that he joined with the Franklin Quest and started the Franklin-Covey daytimer system. Of what to accomplish every day. Boy, I was a daytimer junkie. Man, I followed it religiously. It's not on my calendar. I'm not doing it. And sometimes I would add things just so I could check them off because I forgot. You know that? Just so I could. Amen. Yes, I did it. So I could go back and look, wow, how productive was I that day. He actually started an online community of social organizing and teaching and helping folks set goals. He was a great contributor. Among the many countless things that he said and wrote, some of the most important sayings that came out of him were these 3 or 4. Begin with the end in mind. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. Well, that would preach. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Effective leadership is putting first things first. Effective management is the discipline in carrying it out. My friend Dana Drum is a great organizer. I've been trying to get on her calendar for several weeks. She sent me a week ago a list of dates that I prompted her to send when we can get together. Do you know when I responded? This morning. I did respond.
Oh, did you? Okay.
She knows I'm going to have it about a week later. Need to learn more, first things first. Should have gotten right back on that. If I don't get back to you right away, I've not checked my email closely. So effective leadership is putting first things first, but effective management is actually disciplining yourself to look at your calendar and say, this date, February 18th, down at 4.
Oh, okay.
When I read this text, the first thing I thought about was Covey's book, First Things First, on principle-centered leadership. And I'm amazed at how easy it is for us to forget that principle when life throws us a million other things that we have to do. Because we all wear a lot of different hats, yeah? And so knowing what first needs to be accomplished, we can know it in theory, how to keep the main thing, but practicing that is not always an easy thing. But sometimes it's because we have a hard time discerning what is the main thing. Sometimes we're indecisive, or sometimes we're just big old people pleasers, and we won't make the main thing because we worry too much about what others will think of us or not, whether we make the main thing. So I'm interested, what's your main thing? In your life today, in your work, or in your retirement, what's your main thing? And you always make it a priority. I'm curious. What is it? Some of you have grandkids I can't get on your calendar. That must be your main thing. That's great. Somebody else. What's your main thing? Or one of your main things? Yeah. Family. First. Writing. A musician. Writing. What else? Exercise. I got my sorry self back on the exercise floor 2 days ago, Jenny. My doctor said, your cholesterol is 203. Must do something. I took it seriously. Yeah. Somebody else.
Go to work.
Well, what?
Go to work.
Go to work. With great joy, he says. That's one of those things you get up and do because it's on your to-do list, not because you want to. As a solo pastor in a program-sized church, you can imagine there are a lot of different things that I have to do. Of course, I only work on Sundays, but when I do decide to go into the week, there are a lot of different things to do. And it's amazing to me that the first of the year brings all of these tasks. Year-end reports that the conference wants down to the minute. How many people were in this small group and that small group? How much money was given? How many new people did you add? How many males are in the church? How many females are in the church? You remember those, Dana. All of those reports. You remember those, Ron. First things first, those year-end reports, a steady pastoral care needs, meetings, visitation. I co-founded an interfaith coffee group of churches in the community, and I've spent a lot of time on that lately. Do you know how many we had at our 6th gathering Tuesday? 40. Wow. That takes a lot of time, but I wanted to be connected in the community, so we had Baha'i, we had Unitarian Universalists, we had UCC, we had Presbyterian, we had Methodist, we had Baptist. It was wonderful. All that takes time, but there are too many main things vying for my attention. So John Geis is the new chair of SBR and said, why don't I be your first things first man? So every Monday morning he comes in and sits with me and we look at my first things first list. He even comes in on holidays, like Martin Luther King Day. On Monday he called and said, where are you? And I said, I'm home, taking my day off. Did you see the calendar? So we know Tuesday. That's what Paul was trying to say to the church at Corinth. That in the midst of their bragging about who they belong to, who baptized them, Paul, Apollos, Cephas, or Christ, that wasn't why he came among them in the first place. Baptism wasn't important, but it wasn't the main thing. He had a different purpose among them. You can find that purpose in verse 17, but I want to read it to you from Eugene Peterson's more no-nonsense, cut-to-the-chase vernacular. He says this to the church at Corinth who's quarreling. I have a serious concern to bring up with you. Using the authority of Jesus, our Master, I'll put it as urgently as I can. You just simply must learn to get along with each other. You've got to learn to be considerate of one another. I bring this up because some from Chloe's family brought up this disturbing report that you're fighting among yourselves. I'll tell you exactly what I was told, that you're picking sides. You're going around saying, I'm on Paul's side, or I'm on Apollos' side, or Jesus, he's my man. Peter's my boy. This sounds like you're on the schoolyard playground, choosing sides. That's how they were acting. And he says, I ask you, has the Messiah been chopped up in little pieces so we can each have him as a relic? Was Paul crucified for you? And then he goes on through the whole diatribe of baptism. He said, God didn't call me out to collect a following for myself, but to preach the message, to preach the gospel, and to collect a calling for him. And he didn't send me to preach that with a lot of rhetoric and fancy speech. So Paul's main purpose among the church at Corinth was to be Billy Graham to them. It was to be Billy Graham to them so they could be Billy Graham to the world. It was so they can learn what their witness was, so they can organize themselves around the gospel message, and so they could preach that in season and out of season, and not using any fancy rhetoric to proclaim it. It's interesting that in all of my years of church work, that depending on how many parishioners that a pastor has, there are that many opinions on what the pastor's main thing should be. What their main thing should be and their main priority. I do a lot of things to a lot of other tasks, but I will tell you, I put more time and energy into my sermon than any other thing. It begins early Monday morning. Last Monday morning, when John wanted to know where I was planning the rest of this sermon series plus all of my sermons for Lent. That takes an inordinate amount of time, and I will apologize for it. It's the only time that I collectively have the opportunity to have all of you together in one place. And it will always be to me the most important task that I have. However, it's also important and would be supercalifragilisticexpialidocious wonderful if I had another voice to share in that with me. And I do in Dana. And we did in Joyce. And we have in Bob. And we have in Peter. Looking forward to when we have it in an associate. We are on the road. We have made the steps of approval to hire an associate. I'm excited about a new voice to be able to share the pulpit. I don't have all the answers in the right voice and the right style for everybody. I know that. And we need a variety of male voices and female voices and lay and clergy. And because as important as the task of preaching is, I need to be able to share that time to give myself to other things that are equally as important, like the aging adults in this congregation and those who are going through transition and loss. I would love to start a Stephen Ministry Light program so that we can encompass more of those people. I would love to do more one-on-one work in the community like we've done with this Interfaith Coffee and build those relationships that help get our church on people's maps. I would love to develop an emerging worship service for younger folks and young adults, and a young associate might be able to do that. That's what we're asking for. In the midst of that, not forgetting our older folks, but recognizing what needs to come. Methodist congregations usually weigh their focus on either a social justice and social gospel side, or on a proclamation, saving souls for Jesus Christ side. Now, if you had a church in the South, if you had grown up in the South and pastored in the South like I did, there is no apology about proclaiming the gospel. That's first and foremost, and winning souls for Jesus Christ, as if everybody's lost. Sometimes I really struggle with that. Sometimes our souls are the ones that need most saving, yeah? But there is a social gospel and a proclamation blend. And that's what the Methodist Church is, both works of mercy and works of piety. In 1996, Eddie Fox and George Morris were invited to come to our church and share about their book, Faith Sharing, an invitation to leading souls into relationships. This book was published first in 1996, and in 1997, we actually invited Fox, or actually Morris, to come to our church at the time, and he flew in, and on his car ride on the way there, he hit a deer and ended up not being able to be with us. But we wanted him to talk to us about this book, because even in the South in 1997, we were dealing with How do you share your gospel story? The who, how, where, when, why? How do you share faith with other people? And is it acceptable to do so? Is it necessary to do so? And if so, how do you do it? And among all of the reading that I've done about both of them, because I know them both, and then in my own ministry, this is what I've learned about sharing your faith. That the best thing that you could do is share your story and your experience of coming to Christ, or your experience with church or the spirituality, and not projecting that on anybody else. Just sharing that. And secondly, that you have to earn the right to share that. Remember, I told you that I loved my grandfather, that his style was to go up on the street. Do you know the Lord, brother? Do you know the Lord, sister? And where, if you died tonight, where would you be? He literally would say that. I don't subscribe to that. I think you need to build a relationship with people first before you dare ask those questions, personally. But that means that you have to take the time to cultivate the relationship, to build a relationship, to engage people over coffee or conversation, or to go on a mission trip and meet people and share the gospel through passing out Bibles and, can I sit down and talk to you about this? Let me tell you why I'm here. Building the relationship, our goal is not to save them. God does the saving. God does the saving. We're simply conduits. When we worked in the Czech Republic, let me tell you, the Czechs that we worked with said, Michelle, we love the American mission teams, but they come over with a scorecard. How many more checks can we save on this mission trip? As if we didn't have religion at all, they said. As if we didn't have anything of Christ at all. Look at our churches. Look at our countryside is dotted with churches. We gave up a lot. A lot of people gave up their chance for education. They gave up their privacy. They gave up an opportunity to even still be in relationship with family because they chose Christ and they were rejected for it. And we come in with our American imperialism gospel and we're going to save a bunch of people. God forbid. God does the saving. We simply show up, folks. We just simply show up and love people into relationships with Christ and share our story. So what's the main purpose of the church? It's proclamation. Boy, doesn't that that's scary. That makes us uncomfortable. It is to be sharing works of mercy, but it's also to be proclaiming the gospel of Christ, even if you never use words. You know how it's easy. Preach the gospel every day if necessary. Use words. So finally, what makes for a good sermon, what makes for a good preaching, as Paul said, I didn't come to preach with eloquence. And gosh, that's got to be one of the hardest tasks of preachers. What enhances a pastor who preaches supporting your biblical view might enhance the word for you, but what distracts from it? Sometimes technology distracts from it. Sometimes the preacher distracts from it, being ill-prepared or being boring, irrelevant. You know, I said to somebody the other day, I can't hit it out of the ballpark every week. Simply can't. Some passages are more interesting to me than others. Some of them are more interesting to you than others. Sometimes it's the subject matter. Sometimes appearance makes a difference. Sometimes whether or not you believe the pastor has integrity. And that's huge. If a pastor doesn't have integrity, they have none. Suffice it to say, folks, there's a lot to discuss. And it's hard for pastors to put themselves out there to say what makes for a good sermon and not. But I say to you, if you have things that you'd like to say to me privately, things that hurt, things that help, please don't hesitate to tell me. I want to know that. I want to be able to let you hear as best you can hear. But I want to suggest to you that in the midst of all of our preaching and teaching and social justice work, let's keep the main thing the main thing. Let's let the business of the church be kingdom business. There's a lot of other stuff we can get caught up in, and it's not kingdom business, it's just busyness. And that means that sometimes, at least especially until we get some other folk on board to help, I have to make judicious choices about what I will do and what I won't do, because first things must be first. And one of the main things is that we always make sure that the agenda of God is extended and that we love people into relationship with God. And that will preach. May we each be engaged in proclaiming and telling the good news however God equips us to do.